Welcome to this explainer. Okay, think about the device you're using to watch this right now. What actually happens when it inevitably breaks down or just gets outdated? Does it just end up sitting in a landfill somewhere? Well, today we're unpacking some truly visionary research by Dr. Saman Sarbaz-Vatan. We're going to look at a monumental, absolute game changer of a shift happening right now in global business. It's a phenomenon known as the convergence of the digital and circular economies. And honestly, it's an evolution that's quietly but forcefully rewriting the entire rulebook on how value is created, distributed, and sustained globally.
So, that brings us to the big question. Are we witnessing the actual death of shareholder capitalism? Now, Dr. Sarbaz-Vatan's research neutrally presents this not as some sort of political shift, but rather as a completely necessary economic evolution. I mean, for decades, the dominant corporate model has been singular and pretty unyielding, right? Maximize profit for your shareholders at absolutely all costs. But the sheer physical limits of our planet, combined with this massive explosion of new digital capabilities, are forcing a massive pivot. We're moving away from that traditional profit-only model towards something entirely new.
Okay. Let's dive into this. To really grasp the philosophical stakes of this massive paradigm shift, you've got to listen to this brilliant quote from Walter Stachel. He says, "The goods of today are the resources of tomorrow at yesterday's prices." I love that. It's the foundational mindset of the circular economy. It basically demands that we completely stop looking at a manufactured product as the absolute end of the line. Instead, we really have to start seeing every single product as merely a temporary state for highly valuable raw materials.
To understand exactly where we're going, we really have to contrast two highly distinct eras. The outgoing era, that's shareholder capitalism. It is strictly linear. We extract resources, we make a physical product, and we just dispose of it at the end of its short little life. The sole focus there is maximizing product sales and segregating profit. But in stark contrast is the emerging era, stakeholder capitalism. This model actively prioritizes environmental and social inclusion. It is inherently circular, aiming to keep resources flowing in these continuous infinite loops. And it completely shifts the focus from selling physical stuff to offering continuous, service-based outcomes. And what exactly is the catalyst forcing this massive change in global business philosophy? Well, it's what Dr. Sarbaz-Vatan defines as the dual transition. Simply put, it's the simultaneous and convergent rise of the digital economy and the circular economy. You really can't have one without the other anymore. They're inextricably linked. The circular economy provides the sustainable, resource-efficient framework we desperately need just to survive. Meanwhile, the digital economy provides the underlying technological infrastructure, the data visibility, required to actually make that framework function at a global scale. Let's look at the incredibly urgent global pressures actively driving this systemic shift. Because look, it isn't just about corporate goodwill, it is about pure, undeniable necessity. We are facing catastrophic climate change, a staggering 68% loss in biodiversity over just the last 40 years alone, and extreme population growth pressure. By 2050, the global population is projected to hit 9.7 billion people. The research points out a frankly terrifying statistic. Under our current linear, heavy consumption model, we would literally need 3 Earths to provide the required resources by 2050. 3 whole planets. That's mathematically impossible. And that mathematical impossibility is exactly why technological convergence is stepping in to completely rewrite the equation. So I want you to genuinely consider this question for a moment. How can businesses actually survive, compete, and grow without destroying the very planetary limits they rely on? Because for a really long time, economic growth was directly tied to how much raw material a company could extract from the earth. But if we're running out of cheap, accessible materials, the fundamental mechanics of growth have to be completely decoupled from physical consumption. The old math just doesn't work anymore.
So the crucial point is right here. We decouple economic growth from resource consumption by shifting away from selling physical products and moving toward product service systems. This is a monumental, absolute pivot in how we think about commerce. Think about it for a second. Instead of a manufacturing company building a car, selling it to you, and washing their hands of it forever, they retain ownership of that complex machine and simply sell you the service of mobility.
This brings us to a massively important concept known as XaaS, or Everything as a Service. These are super innovative business models offering services, access, or specific outcomes instead of physical product ownership. We're talking about renting, leasing, and sharing platforms, effectively replacing the old take, make, dispose mentality of the past century. When you buy a specific outcome rather than a physical asset, the entire incentive structure of the global economy changes almost overnight. It's a total game changer.
Let's walk through exactly how this product-to-service mechanism natively enforces circularity. Step 1. The producer actually retains ownership of the physical item. Step 2. You, the user, simply rent access to the service that item provides. And Step 3. The producer maintains, repairs, and ultimately circulates that asset right back into the system. Why is this so revolutionary? Because suddenly, planned obsolescence is a terrible business model. If a producer is financially responsible for an asset's entire lifecycle, well, it's entirely in their best financial interest to design products that are deeply durable, easily repairable, and perfectly recyclable.
Let's move to Section 1, the engine, combinatorial innovation, and see how this builds. Now, you might be wondering, how do massive global companies actually track and manage all these physical assets if they're suddenly renting them out across the globe instead of just selling them once and walking away? Well, it's through compounding technologies. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. You've got AI and analytics at 35%, the Internet of Things forming smart assets at 35%, and blockchain providing decentralization at 30%. Individually, sure, these are incredibly powerful tools, but combinatorially, when you fuse them together into one unified system, they completely break down traditional data silos and build incredibly resilient, highly visible supply chains.
Let's look at exactly how this works in action. From the source research, we see artificial intelligence being used not just for predicting when a leased piece of heavy machinery might break down, but actually for modeling massive climate scenarios and tracking atmospheric conditions. We see the Internet of Things providing real-time tracking of asset health across an entire city or even a continent. And we see blockchain being utilized to create what the research creatively calls see-through supply chains. Basically, these are immutable, completely transparent ledgers where every single step of a material's journey is permanently tracked. And this matters deeply, because an immutable ledger means no more hiding behind complex, shady logistics. It democratizes financial access, decentralizes resource management, and rigorously enforces accountability across the entire board.
All of this technological and economic convergence brings us to Section 2, the new paradigm, stakeholder capitalism.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate philosophical shift of the dual transition. Just look at how the concept of responsibility is treated in these two distinct models. In the old linear shareholder model, responsibility for waste and environmental impact is completely segregated and, frankly, just ignored. It's treated simply as an externality, somebody else's problem. But in the circular stakeholder model, the core focus shifts to inclusion and sustainability, and that responsibility is completely shared across the entire ecosystem. Because digital tools now allow us to accurately track every single asset, everyone in the supply chain is held accountable. Hiding your waste is simply no longer an option.
So what is the core actionable insight we should take away from all of this? Well, it's that the convergence of digital and circular economies absolutely demands shared responsibility and total transparency. Forward-thinking business leaders no longer have the luxury of ignoring the afterlife of the products they put out into the world. They absolutely must actively leverage these powerful digital tools to adopt circular, everything-as-a-service strategies. Because look, those who embrace this dual transition, they're going to build incredibly resilient, sustainable value for decades to come. But those who stubbornly cling to the linear, dispose, and forget model of the past, they face certain obsolescence.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. As the traditional bounds of shareholder capitalism slowly fade into the background and the physical pressures on our planet continue to mount, is your business actually ready for the era of everything as a service? Are you prepared to embrace the digital tools necessary to thrive in a circular economy? It's a massive global shift for sure, but it represents one of the absolutely greatest innovation opportunities of our time. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.